Okay, I hope you haven't been having a really hard time just trying to click on your button, getting the code that we wrote to work. There's one step which I forgot to mention in the other video because it was getting long and I just wanted to finish it. In the actual button, we need to basically insert an action for this particular area here. So I'm going to click on the word action and I want it to run. So rather than the action being none when something's clicked on, I want it to run a macro, and the name of the macro, getName, is exactly the same as the name of the subroutine that I've got here. Okay, that's all I'm choosing. I'm just saying when I click on that button, then do this and then say OK. And now when you click on your start button, you will see those message boxes coming up. Alright, there's a couple of things which we can sort out about this, but I've just put in a couple more comments so that you can see how the code is going to be structured. Remember, for your work, you're not getting marked on whether you can program, but you are getting marked on whether things are fit for purpose and audience. So you need to make sure that the messages that are coming up, such as these, are appropriate for your audience. So in green I've put just comments. Remember at the top, name is just the variable or part of memory, computer memory, that we're going to use to hold the person's name. We're going to get their name, so getName, this particular name here can be anything that you want, so you could call it just person's name or user's name or ask for name, but you mustn't have any spaces between there, and you have the two curly brackets around it. Name, this name is exactly the same name as you set up here, so these two things can be different. Anything in double quotes is whatever you type in yourself. So there's just one more thing I want you to show you, which is just after plus name we can actually put in another comma, which is to change the title that turns up for that particular message box. So I'm going to type in the word VB and I'm looking for application modal, this one here. So I've just double clicked on that. That saves me having to type it in, a comma, and then in quotes I'm going to put in what the title of the message box is going to be, and for me it's just going to be IP quiz, and then I'm going to close that. And remember, we're just doing that for the message box here, and we might reuse that code for these next two comments that I've written here. Again, save it and run your PowerPoint presentation. So if you do F5 and click on Start Quiz, you'll get, type your name here and then say OK, and IP quiz now is the name that comes up in the top of the message box. Okay, that's all fine. So now a couple more things we need to add to this. One is we need to display a message when an incorrect answer is selected. But when somebody selects the correct answer, then it's fine that they've selected the correct answer, and then all I want them to do is move on to the next slide. So firstly, let's get a message displayed when an incorrect answer is selected, because they're not moving the slide, so this one's going to be very straightforward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this comment here and just above it put the name sub, because this is a subroutine, so this is like setting up a macro. So this is for incorrect, so bracket bracket, press enter, and it puts in a line, separates out the two, and I'm using the tab key just to move in a bit. This is just to help with programming so that you can see things visually. So again, this is just going to be a message box, which is exactly like this code that we've got here. So we've already got a message box code coming up. So let's do Control C. So I've just copied that code, and now I'm going to do Control V. But instead of a message coming up saying have fun doing this quiz, we now don't really want it to say that. We want it to say something like that is not correct, have another go, and then it's going to come up with the person's name, and the top of the message box is going to say IP quiz. So that's the only thing we want to show when that happens. So if I just save this now, get my PowerPoint up, and I need to attach that to an incorrect answer. So this one is an incorrect answer, so this time again I've selected the whole box, action, and I want it to run a macro, not get name this time, I want it to just run incorrect, and OK. Alright, so let's just make sure this works. So I start the quiz, I type in a name, I say OK, it's going to use that name in my message box. Oh, and there's one more thing which I need to do. When I click on start quiz, and after I've clicked the message box, I also want it to go on to the next slide. Okay, so let's get it to do that next slide, and that's going to be again with our start button. So this is what happens in our start button. So just before the end subline, I'm going to put in another line here to move on to the next slide, and to move on to the next slide we have to use a command which is active presentation, spelt like this, with no spaces between the two, and then dot, and then I'm looking for the word slide show window, which is this one, so I just double click on that, that appears, dot view, okay, and there's view comes up automatically, so I don't have to type it in, so I double click on that one, dot next, which just means go to the next slide. Okay, so let's save this and let's run this now. So let's do F5 to run this, and so type in a name just for testing purposes, say OK to this, and it should now go on to the next slide, and it has done. This is an incorrect answer, so when I click on this it comes up with a message saying have another go, and this doesn't take us to any other slide, it just keeps us here. Okay, so in the next video I'm just going to show you how to do the correct answer code.